then it's called the stratified. So how many layers we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 layers. There is no pores or anything. They said avascular. There is no blood supply. No, nothing is going on. So and these all have the top is the apical surface and below is the basal surface. So what is the difference between simple and stratified? Simple is the single layer. Stratified is the multi-layer. Thus we just wrote number of cell layers, simple one layer and stratified more than one layer. This is the same structure they are telling. Now shape. Now we have talked about the layers, how many layers it has. Now how they looks like. Shape of the cells means how they looks like. There are couple of different shapes the epithelial cells can get. So what are the shapes? Squamous, cuboidal, columnar. From the name we can understand squamous means flat in flat type cell. Cuboidal means it's a cube shaped cell and columnar is like a column line, is a lengthy one. That is called the columnar cells. So now let's see how it looks like. When this is a single layer with a nucleus in the middle is called the squamous cell. Squamous cells can be flat. Then we have the another shape. These squamous cells can be single layer and multi-layer, stratified or simple. Same thing. Cuboidal. These are the shape of the cube. So that's why it's called the cuboidal. This is the same thing. It can be single layer, multiple layer. And the columnar. This is the shape like a column. That's why it's called the columnar. Now, simple epithelia, what are those? Simple squamous. That means single squamous. Now, where's that? This is looks like that. Squamous, simple. When is a single layer? Simple squamous cells. Single layer of cells. What they found? They are found mainly in the body cavities, lines, lungs, and capillaries. These questions must come. Simple squamous cells can be found which areas? It can lines the body cavities. Like there we have the different types of body cavity like abdominopelvic cavity, thoracic cavity, dorsal cavity, ventral cavity. So it lines the body cavities and also lines the lungs and capillaries. What is the main function? We have learned yesterday diffusion, filtration, and or secretion in membranes. This you have to try to make note and you have to find it out and you have to remember. Find it out means we learned yesterday in the PowerPoint what is the diffusion, what are different types of diffusion. So, so these cells, the simple squamous cells, they function is diffusion, filtration, or secretion in the membranes. The cursor. So this is the diagram of a simple squamous cell, how it looks like, and it is the lining of the lungs. That's why it's showing the lungs, and this lungs lining is covered by squamous Simple squamous cell. But what type of squamous cell? Simple, because it's a single layer.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Do we do any like field trips to St. Mike's to look at cadavers, like to see inside, like to physically look and know that like what we're talking about, like the different layers of the like connective tissues and the layers that
In the
support and
microscope, or what do you mean?
yeah, because when I went to school before, we went to St. Mike's and we got to go into the morgue where they had like cadavers and stuff. So they were dissected, like open, so you could see like all of the layers. You knew what you were talking about instead
No,
of
no, no.
just
No, we don't
no
do that. No, we don't do that. No. What course you are?
medical lab assistant.
Which college?
God, back in the day, CDI.
CDI. Nowadays they doesn't allow it.
That's a shame.
Yeah, because there are a lot of legal issues in this country. So that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially, yeah, because you don't know which dead body the morgue has been passed away from which condition, what disease or
No, no,
something.
these bodies were already fixed, so they were already treated in formaldehyde and completely like there was no. It wasn't like someone passed away that night and everyone went in to look. It was like basically they had donated their bodies to science.
No, no, I understand. For the medical students, mainly to study the structures.
Yeah.
These are for the mainly medical students. They donate the body for the medical students. I don't
Yes.
know. We don't do that, and it's not under our curriculum to go and
Okay.
do that one. Yeah.
Okay.
So sorry. Yeah. But that is too much for you guys. You doesn't need that. Do you think you are going to do that sectioning and do the simple cubital cells or staining that one? No, whatever we need is going to be enough. Yeah. So we just have to basically this doesn't need in our profession also, but we have to learn our anatomy, the microanatomy. That's why you're learning also, and it's better to know who is doing what. Okay, so now we have learned about the simple squamous. Now we are going to tell about the simple cuboidal, which is cuboidal shape and is a single layer as usual. What is located in the glands and their ducts. So location is very important. And where they can be found? They can be found in the glands and other ducts, where there is more nature of secretory nature. Forms walls of kidney tubules because it needs the secretion and covers the ovaries. So, what are their function? Secretion and absorption, and ciliated types propel mucus or reproductive cells. Some cells are the ciliated, which we learned yesterday. So, yeah, and these cilia help to move or propel the mucus or things whatever is generating in the body, in the cells. Okay. So these are the cuboidal. You can see single layer, not multi-layer. It is found in the example in the kidney. So even you go to the morgue, you cannot see the stained things because anyway they have to cut the tissue. You cannot see the which is single or stratified or anything. That you have to go to the tissue histopathology lab, and then you have to look at the under the slides. Then you
Yes.
can, yeah. So these are the simple. When you section, you looks like this. So simple cuboidal epithelial cells. This mainly the where they are the cells needs to do the secretion mainly. And absorption, there is the cuboidal cells. Now the columnar cells, which looks like the column, is a single layer of, these are the tall cells. These are includes mucus producing goblet cells, mainly in the lines of the digestive tract where they need to produce mucus. And obviously the function, major functions for many of them except the squamous one, the cuboidal or the columnar, they help in the secretion and absorption. And also it can be found in the digestive system and on the reproductive system. So they looks like this. You can see they are telling the is line the digestive system. It looks like the digestive system, but how this looks like when you do the staining after taking the tissue. So these are the cells. This is in between is the goblet cells. We do not need to know right now. We are going to learn later. So this is the total simple columnar epithelial cell. The simple epithelial, the columnar cells, but they have one type is called the pseudo-stratified columnar. What is the pseudo-stratified? Pseudo means false. It's single layer, but some cells are shorter than others. Sometimes it looks like a double layer. When they are forming a tissue, some cells are really tall, some cells are not. So it's give an impression that it may not be monolayer or single layer. It may be multi-layer or double layer. So that is the call. That's why it's called the pseudo-stratified columnar cells. So it's again single layer. Some cells are shorter than the others. So what is the pseudo-stratified columnar? When some cells are shorter than the regular one, that is the pseudo-stratified columnar cells. They are found mainly in the respiratory tract where it is ciliated. Okay. And functions is absorption or secretion. So these are the pseudo-stratified epithelial layer. It is mainly found in the lungs, in the cavity. So it's pseudo-stratified layer, how it looks like. So you can see one, they are sometimes smaller than the other one. Now we told about the single layer, like simple squamous, simple cuboidal, simple columnar, and pseudo-stratified, pseudo-columnar. Now we have the stratified. Again, stratified layer means multi-layer. Stratified squamous cells at the apical surface are flattened, function as a protective covering where friction is common, like the skin, body lining. So mainly location, skin, mouth, esophagus. Skin, every time there is a friction. Mouth, you are eating something, it's a friction. And esophagus, the food is going to the esophagus, there is a friction. So mainly where there is a major function of friction, there you can see the simple stratified epithelia, squamous epithelia. So these were to remember the simple or single versus stratified. What is simple columnar? Simple cuboidal, simple stratified, and what are means the plural form is the strated squamous or strated cuboidal or strated columnar. And where they are located, sometimes it's the skin, mouth, and esophagus. They give the options. Skin, mouth, in the skin, which type of cells you can see? Stratified commas, single cuboidal, simple squamous cells. So you have to know In the skin, there is a friction. We have the stratified squamous cells. So obviously it's going to multilayer. And this is the esophagus lining. Now stratified cuboidal. We just read the stratified symbol. Now stratified, we are going the cuboidal. Two layers of cuboidal cells function in protection. That is the cuboidal, and this two layers sometimes is multi-layer too. So when it's more than one layer of any type is going to be the stratified. Stratified columnar surface cells are columnar cells underneath vary in size and shape, function in protection. Mainly function is in protection. And stratified cuboidal and columnar, they are rare in human body. We generally don't find them rare. Found mainly in ducts of large glands. This can question. This stratified cuboidal and columnar epithelial can be found in the human body, true or false. So you have to, this is a rare. It's not very common. Now, you doesn't need this thing. Nobody is going to ask these questions, but just to, for the study sake, I have to tell. So what is transitional epithelium? These are the modified stratified squamous epithelium. That means these are the stratified simple squamous epithelium, but it's modified. What type of modification it has? The shape of the cells depends upon the amount of stretching. How much the that area is getting stretched. That stretching factor is going to tell or determine the shape of the cells. So how much is getting stretched? So function is stretching and the ability to return to normal shape. Location lines organs of the urinary system, because urinary system there is a contraction so that the urine or the filtrate they can pass out from one chamber to the another area. So this is called the transitional epithelium. Now we are going the glandular epithelium. From the gland, with the name we can understand gland means gland which has secretes something. Those are the gland. So one or more cells responsible for secreting a particular product. It's not only the squamous or cuboidal or epithelial. So one, what is the glandular cells? One or more cells responsible for secreting a particular product. That is called the glandular epithelium. Secretion contain protein molecules, is an aqueous water-filled fluid. Okay, so now we have the glandular epithelium. This is very important. How many types of glands we can find in our body? Two types, endocrine, exocrine. Question. Two major gland types. How many gland types you can feed in our body? Answer two. And what are their names? Endocrine and exocrine. Remember? So endocrine glands. What is the endocrine glands? These are the ductless glands. Yesterday or day before yesterday, when I talking during the circulation, I told you the endocrine glands which are the ductless. Those are called the venetic. Sorry, those are called the endocrine gland. So what are the ductless secretion? Because what is that? This is why I'm telling. So this is two. It's going to come. Endocrine glands are ductless. They doesn't have the duct to pour their secretion in this point of interest or where they need to function. What they does, this they deliver their secretion into the blood directly. So endocrine gland deliver the secretion or all the hormones. Mainly, who is the endocrine glands? Mainly, who secretes the hormone. So they deliver the secretion through the blood vessels. And all secretions are hormone, which I already told you. All of them, glandular epithelium glands, endocrine glands are the hormone. Endocrine glands produce hormone. Hormones are produced by endocrine or exocrine gland. Endocrine gland. Hormones are produced by endocrine glands. True or false? True. Hormones are produced by exocrine gland or apocrine gland. True or false? False. Now, exocrine gland. When they secrete the secretion from the gland empty through the duct to the epithelial surface. That is called the exocrine gland. When it produces the secretion and then gland secretes that secretion into the specific area, that is called the duct. What is this? I should not say ductful glands, but the gland with a duct. So exocrine gland. So secretions empty through ducts to the epithelial surface. What are those? Sweat glands and oil glands. You know, you secrete sweats, right? Oils. You produce oil. So that is the glands. They put their secretion out through the duct. Okay, these are the different glands, different the cells, different the. So now we have learned those things. Now, what is the different types of tissues now? Now we know what type of different cells from the tissues. What are their basic structure at the level. Now, connective tissue, sorry, connective tissue. Connective tissue, the names tell it connects. What it connects? Connects everything inside the body. It needs to be connected. So it's found everywhere in the body. These are the most abundant and widely distributed tissue because the whole body needs the connection. What are the function? Binds body tissues together. Different tissues, they binds. Supports the body. Obviously, if they spread all over the body and they connects the different tissues together, they will support the body and provides the protection. What are the different characteristics, specificity of this? There are variations in the blood supply. Some tissues are very well vascularized and some have a poor blood supply or avascular, like the epithelial cells, the skin cells. We told that those cells are avascular. That's all. Some has good blood supply. Majority of them has a good blood supply. Couple of cells that doesn't have a poor blood supply or they are avascular. That is the skin cells. That is the simple squamous epithelium. And what is the extracellular matrix? What is the non-living material that surrounds the living cells? This is called the extracellular matrix. That's give the only the protection. This doesn't have any nucleus or even they have some is dead. And that type of matrix is needed for our protection. So now extracellular matrix. It has two main elements, ground substances, mostly water, along with adhesion proteins and polysaccharides molecules. Fibers produce these three types of. Only just remember what are the extracellular matrix cells. They are collagen, elastic, yellow fibers, and reticular because these are the connective type of tissue. They are connecting each other, right? So this is called the extracellular matrix. They form the extracellular matrix. Which tissue? The tissues which form the collagen, elastic, and reticular fibers. They form the extracellular matrix. They are mainly the fibrous type and they are produced by the cells. What are the examples of the connective tissue? Bone. Another name of the bone is osseous. So, osseous bone tissue is the connective tissue composed of bone cells in lacunae. Lacunae means cavity. The bone cells in lacunae. This is the hard matrix because bone is hard due to the calcium deposit, calcium salts. Because bone needs to be strong. Bone is giving your body skeleton, is going to our body framework. So they have large number of collagen fibers. They have to be because they have to make tight junctions so that it can be steady. And their function is to protect and support the body as usual. From the name, we can understand. Okay. So functions protect and support that. Matrix bone cells in the lacunae heart matrix. So this has been done. See how the bone cells looks like. Is each cells looks like different under the microscope. So bone, when you do the section tissue, it looks like this. These are the holes. It's called the lacunae. You are going to later understand why this lacunae is needs because it needs to transport the materials because it's a hard bony structure, right? So it needs some lacunae, some like the channel tubes to pass the materials inside the cells and or between the cells, within and in between the cells. Now, cartilage, connective tissue type. We have one connective tissue, we call this bone or osseous tissue. We have another connective tissue is called the hyaline cartilage. This is the question, the most common type of cartilage found in the human body. This is the question. May come. Most of the time it comes. What is the name? Is the hyaline cartilage. This is the most common type of cartilage. It has abundant collagen fiber. It's cartilage. It's soft. It's not like the bone. It's hard, but it's not like the how the cartilage when you eat some chicken or something in the at end of the the leg or wing, you can see the white very soft type of bones. That is the cartilage. Abundant collagen fiber and rubbery matrix so that it can give you the cushioning. Where you can find in the larynx. What is our voice box? It needs to be soft. It needs to be guarded. It needs to have a structure, but it can be that hard because when we pass the air, it has to move, soft, bend, relax, so that that's the made of the larynx is where we can find the hyaline cartilage. Fetal skeleton prior to birth. The baby before the birth, the whole skeletal system is the cartilaginous, is the hyaline cartilage. That's why when the baby born, you have to be very careful, especially your head, spinal cord, everywhere, so that you doesn't make hurt or break this cartilage. So fetal skeleton prior to birth functions as more flexible skeletal elements, skeletal tissue which forms the skeleton. These Hyaline cartilage is also part of the skeletal system, but they are the soft and more flexible skeletal element than the bone. Bone is more harder, is called the osseous tissue. So it looks like this one. Any questions on that you can ask me later. And now we have two different types of cartilage. Sorry, elastic cartilage and fibrocartilage. Elastic cartilage, it from the name we can understand, provides the elasticity. What is that one? External ear. You can see, you can bend it. It's hard. It's soft, hard. You can bend your ear. That is the elasticity. So it supports the so elastic cartilage can found in the ear, external ear, mainly the pinna. And fibrocartilage is highly compressible, means it's very compressed. Where you can find it? Cushion like this between the vertebra. You have the vertebra. In between the vertebra, you need little bit soft, but really cushion type so that it can, when you are bending, stretching, and again you are going back to your position so that it can stretch at the same time, it can compressed. So it has that elasticity but is firm. So fiber cartilage you can see in between the vertebrae. And elastic cartilage can be found in the external ear. So how this looks like? We don't need to look like this one. Now we have another call. It's called the dense connective tissue. It is the main matrix elements collagen fiber. Fibroblasts are also called. They make the dense connective tissue, make the fibers. What are those? Tendons, ligaments, dermis. So we have the tendons, we have the ligaments, different type of little bit hard tissue. Those are formed from the fibroblast and collagen fibers. Those are called the dense connective tissue. That's why. So tendons, there's a dense tendon, you know, it's kind of stretchy. Ligaments is stretchy, but it's really like cord-like. So that's why it's called the fibrous. Dermis, lower layer of the skin, that is also made up of fibroblast and also called the dense connective tissue. So see the how the collagen fiber is that is from when you are doing some work you can understand this is looks like the straight, but they are pulling apart each other and but at the same time is giving you the some kind of support. Okay. What is the loose connective? We learned about the dense connective tissue. Now we have to lose who is the loose connective tissue. All connective tissue is responsible for the connection, right? So we have the loose connective tissue, areolar tissue. What does that means? This is the most widely distributed connective tissue, but when this comes to loose connective tissue, where they found mostly distributed connective tissue and where it can be soft in fillable tissue like the cobwebs. It's like the waves. Functions as a packing tissue. Give the support. It's a packing in between. Contains fibers. It doesn't need to know all these things. Can soak up excess fluid, which causes the edema. Now, see the loose connective tissue. There are who are they? There are adipose tissue. What is the adipose tissue? It's a matrix and alveolar tissue in which fat globules predominate. Adipose tissue question where you can feed the fat droplets or fat globules. adipose tissue. This is the only tissue which houses the fat or fat globules. Question. Many cells contain large lipid deposits. These extra lipid deposits has been taken out by the adipose tissue. So what is the function when you the fat insulates the body to do the temperature regulation? So in your body you have the adipose tissue because you have the fat. That's why when you have too much adipose tissue, you get very fatter, fatter, fatter. But what is the main function? To insulate the body to protect you from the outside heat and cold. Protect some organs, serves as a side of fuel storage. That's the energy storage. When there is a need, this energy, this fat breakdowns and produce the energy and the body, help the body to function properly. So how the adipose tissue looks like. These are all the left side you have seen till now. It's a schematic diagram, and this is the actual microphotography. Now, loose connective tissue is called the reticular connective tissue, which we learn this one. This is the loose connective tissue. We have two types, adipose tissue and reticular tissue. Reticular tissue, delicate network of interwoven fibers, like you have the knitting, sweaters and other things. So they have the interwoven fibers, mainly from the stroma in the lymphoid organs. Who are the lymphoid organs? Who produce the cells to fight against any disease, immune cells, lymphoid organs. So what are these reticular connective tissue? We found in the lymph nodes, we find in the spleen, and we find in the bone marrow. So this you have to remember where you doesn't need that much for function, but you have to remember that where or which cells can acts as a loose connective tissue, but its major function is to, what I say, repeat, spleen. It's give the support of the lymphoid organs like the lymph nodes, spleens, and bone marrow. Spleen is a very important organ. Obviously, bone marrow, where all the blood cells produce, and spleen and lymph nodes. These are the three areas where you can get the reticular connective tissue. Now, blood. Question, is the blood, sometimes it's a blood, how it can be connective tissue? Right? It's a fluid. Question
Well,
will come. Is blood is a
clotting.
connective tissue? He said, yes, blood is a connective tissue. All other things you can giving the support, you are going to see in forms of different cells, either simple or the stratified with the different cell types. So they are accumulated and make the specific function. But from where? Blood is a liquid. How we are telling that is a tissue, connective tissue? Yes, blood is a vascular tissue because blood cells are surrounded by the fluid matrix, and this fluid matrix is called the plasma. So blood cells are floating in the plasma. Uh, that is called the vascular tissue and is blood. You can see the fibers. When you can see, when you are seeing the blood, you cannot see any connection or connective tissue, right? But when you can see it, when you see during the blood clotting, you can see the fibers are visible during the blood clotting. That proves that it's a connective tissue. Functions, transport vehicles for the materials. Next is coming muscle tissue. Function is to produce movement. Muscle tissue means produce movement. Muscle tissue, function, produce movement. What are the three types of muscle cells? This is very important. We have skeletal muscle, we have cardiac muscle, and the smooth muscle. And each muscle function is very important. Questions will come. Skeletal muscle. This is under voluntary control. You can control yourself when you are moving. Skeletal muscle. You can control the movement, whether I'll go in the front or in the back, whether I'm going to bend, whether I'm going to lie down, which position. I'm going to bend the upper part, we are going to bend the knee, toe, anything. So under voluntary control, when you can control it, it's called the voluntary control. So skeletal muscles is under voluntary control. Contracts to pull on bones or skin, because for the movement, you need to push and pull the bones. So it contracts to pull on body bones or skin. It produces gross body involvement or facial expressions. And the skeletal muscles are striated. What is striated means? Multi-layered. Multinucleate. They have more than one nucleus. Skeletal muscles striated, multinucleated, long and cylindrical cells. These are the main 2 points, striated and multinucleated. So see how many nuclei are there. Now next is the cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle is under, this is the involuntary control. You cannot control the cardiac movement, right? Who governs that? The hormone, nerve, other things. So it's not under, okay, heart is doing too much tachycardia. Can you control it to make you bradycardia? You need some other things, the medication or something other things to do the under control, but you cannot do control yourself. So this is the involuntary. Cardiac muscles in under involuntary control. What is obvious? Cardiac means heart, so it's found only in the heart. What is their function? Cardiac muscle is in the heart. What is the function of the heart? To pump the blood and spread throughout the body. Receive the bloods, and again through pumping, it helps for the purification of the blood. So cardiac muscle is under involuntary. It found in the heart, and function is to pump the blood. What is the characteristics of the cardiac muscle? This is important. It's striated again, not single, simple, striated. One nucleus per cell. Skeletal muscle, multinucleated. Cardiac muscle, single nucleus per cells. These are cells are attached to other cardiac muscles, intercalated discs. You doesn't need to remember this point. What is very important to remember, I am telling you, because there the comparison is going to come between your skeletal muscles to cardiac muscle to smooth muscle. Cardiac muscle only found in the heart. It's striated, single nucleus. Function, pump to blood. And this is under involuntary control. The skeletal muscle, it is striated, multinucleated, and Those are under voluntary control. Skeletal muscles mainly found in the help in the movement, found in the bone specifically. Attached to bone, it's not inside the bone. And then we have another muscle. It's called the smooth muscles. From the name, we can understand it's very smooth. This is also under involuntary control. So, which is only the voluntary control? Skeletal muscle. Under involuntary control, cardiac muscles and smooth muscles. Cardiac muscles found only in the heart. Function is to pump the blood. But smooth muscles are under involuntary control and it found in the walls of the hollow organs. Hollow organs means the tube organs. What are the tube organs in your body? The whole digestive system is a tube. Stomach. Then we have the uterus. That is like a sac. So found in the hollow organs. Blood vessels. That's in the tube. So those are called the hollow organs. So found in the walls of the hollow organs such as stomach, uterus, and blood vessels. What are the characteristics? There is no striation. This is the only thing. Smooth muscle cells, no striation. Cardiac muscle and skeletal muscle has striations. You can see the difference between each and there. Some are common, but not everything is common with each other. Most muscles, no striations. Striations gives you little bit more power. It's not soft. It's little bit harder depending upon the striation level. So smooth muscles, no striations. But only one nucleus per cells. And these are mainly the spindle separate cells. Nervous tissue, after nervous tissue. Okay, so after nervous tissue, we are going to go to the different tissue generation. Which number slide we are now? 149. Oh, we're doing good. Yes. So nervous tissue. We did this one, right? Okay. So nervous tissue. Nervous tissue, as I tell in the morning, she is really worried for the nervous tissue. What is doing? It has branches. It has, like the tree. Yes. Nervous tissue is composed of neurons and nerve support cells. What are their function? Send the impulses to the other areas of the body. They take the information, send the impulse to the brain. Brain send the impulse to the response, what to do. So the function is to send impulses to other areas of the body. What are their function? Irritability and conductivity. Why is called why the nervous tissue is getting irritated? It's not the irritation like that, not the itchy or other things. But when you got some kind of external stimulus or internal stimulus, they irritate. It's not the irritation. They like to fight. They like to send the specific information and pass that information to the brain. And then next part from the brain decide what is the information the nervous tissue is, the nervous receptor is sending me. What type of, whether the patient is having high blood sugar or the patient is got cardiac arrest or what. So this is the responsibility of the these are the neuronal cells or nervous tissue, and then they conduct what to do. Insect bites, irritation, send the nervous tissue, send the information to the brain. Brain do the thought process and give the instruction to you by the hand. Kill the insect or help the insects to get rid of from your body. This is simple example I am giving, but it's not like that simple. It's very complicated process. Not only the insects in whole body system, where the heart is functioning, how the brain, even kidney going to function, why the blood vessel construction, relaxation, what they have to do, the sodium imbalance, potassium imbalance, what is the different types of transport things, everything is under governed by the nervous system. So that's it. The brain is our mastermind, but the brain is our super controlling system. What is the control system in the cell? Control house, the control command center. Which is the control center in our cell?
The nucleus.
Yes, yes. I need more response. Why everybody is so silent? Yeah, there will be. What is the command center, the control center of the cell, and what is the control center of the body? What is the control center of the body?
Nervous system. The brain.
The
Brain,
brain.
not the nervous system, brain. Nervous
brain.
system is, yeah, nervous system is to help to process the informations. But the brain is the person who is the, not person, brain is the structure organ who develops everything, understand the thought process, and send the signals. That is the conductivity. Okay. How is that? Interesting?
Yes.
So go for break now. Then we are going to go the tissue repair. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me see how many slides we have. Oh, we are almost done. This is the only slides we are going to do that today or more? Ooh. Okay, let me see. Class link, class list, home link.
What time are we back, Miss?
Are we going to, we have to do the
20 minutes?
Yeah, you can take 25 minutes today. It's okay.
25? Okay,
By
thanks.
this time I can look what we have to learn today.
Okay, 25 minutes.
So what is that? 13? So it's 25 minutes. It's going to be 23. So 30, 10:30. Come back at 10:30. Is that sounds good?
10:30? It's
It's
not
going to be
25 minutes.
25 minutes, right? It's
Perfect.
approximate 25 minutes, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, ma'am, you're still sharing your screen, just so you know.
It's okay. I'm doing my emails. It's not that. Yeah, okay. I can stop it sharing. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So let us start now. Okay. So tissue repair. What is the tissue repair? Means wound healing. When there is any kind of, everybody is there? You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, okay. Okay, and you can see my screen too. Yeah, okay. So now we have learned about the cells, tissue and everything. Now tissue does function, but sometimes when there is a damage or wound, something happens, tissue needs to be regenerated too. How it happens? What is the regeneration means? It's called the wound healing. The good name is regeneration. Replacement of destroyed tissue by the same kind of cells. So first you have to destroy the bad tissue, what has been injured or is not good anymore. That is the regeneration. What is the fibrosis? Repair by dense fibrous connective tissue like the scar tissue. When it forms repaired by the dense or fibrous connective tissue, it forms the scar tissue. And whether regeneration or fibrosis occurs, it depends on what type of tissue has been damaged and severity of the injury. So this is what type of two tissue repair process. One is the regeneration, replacement with the same kind of cells. Fibrosis, repair by the connective tissue. So it's not only the cells, it's a tissue. That's why it's from the scar tissue. And what the regulatory factors, what is going to happen? It depends upon the types of tissue damage and the severity of the injury. So what are the different events in the tissue repair? Inflammation, capillary became permeable, clotting proteins migrate into the area from the bloodstream. We are going to learn all this clotting process again later. But basically, first, the capillary becomes permeable, means and permeable means it can allow the clotting proteins. Permeable means it's allow the clotting proteins to migrate in the area from the bloodstream. So it's cut. Capillaries is a cut, something or inflammation. If there is a cut or the inflammation, means that area got inflamed. So from that time, what happens? The capillary become permeable, allow the blood clotting proteins to migrate from the bloodstream to the site of inflammation and the clot walls of the injured area. The clot forms frames walls in the injured area. Then the granulation tissue forms. What is the granulation? Now in that area, injured area, new capillaries form. They rebuild the collagen fiber, and then next step is degeneration of the surface epithelium. And the scab, when the regeneration happens, when if there is a cut, what happened? You find some the red when the first stage, when you feel the inflammation, itchy or something, and then you find there is getting little bit blackish. So blackish means that time clot formation is taking place, and at the same time slowly the new generation, when after the clot makes the walls around the inflammation, and then ultimately the new capillaries forms a new growth and then started rebuild the collagen fibers. And after that, what happened? The surface epithelium started to grow, the new one, and the dead one comes up this scar tissue. You can see the dry things, the red black things. You detach if there is a cut or the burn or burn something, so that is the scab detaches. Tissues that regenerate easily are the epithelial tissue, which can regenerate easy is the skin and mucous membrane, fibrous connective tissue. The tissue that regenerate poorly, skeletal muscles. So any injury in the skeletal muscle takes long time to repair. And tissues that replace largely with the scar tissue, cardiac muscle, any damage in the cardiac and the nervous tissue or in the brain, that's why more sensitive. It cannot regenerate like the skin tissue, then it's easy. So what happened? The cardiac muscle, any lack of oxygen, angina, anything, less blood supply, it doesn't heals properly quickly. So it forms a scar tissue. Then that area become hard. That's the problem. The heart cannot function properly as it was pumped properly. What is the developmental aspects of this tissue? Epithelial tissue arise from the three primary germ layers. This doesn't need it. No question will come. But primary germ layers means it's when the embryo, when the male tissues are forming. So there are three primary germ layers. What are those? Is the mesoderm from the muscle, ectoderm, nervous tissue, and with the old age, this there is a decrease in the mass and viability in the most tissues depend upon what is the structure, how it's going to form. So epithelial tissue from the primary germ layer, muscle tissue from the mesoderm, and nervous tissue from the ectoderm. This one doesn't need it that much, but yeah, just we have to read it for this one. Okay, so is anything? This one done. Next, we have to go to the next one. Okay, so we did the unit 6, 7, and 8, right? When is your test? Can you just check? It's a Friday or Monday? How you can check that? Can you check from your side?
I didn't see a date on it, so I'm not exactly sure.
That's the
There's
thing.
no date on it.
Because let me see. I'm going to start with the skeletal system and the muscular system. I don't know because respiratory, and then we have the exam from the, if you do the 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, does this is September. My goodness. 24, 12. Maybe, we can push that exam little bit later because why I'm telling is a lot of information. So if you can study today and tomorrow and with the reviews in the weekends, what do you guys think? It's up to you guys. If you want to do that, then I am going to work with you guys. So skeletal system, then the muscular system. Let me see how much is the skeletal system has a lot of information. It has 152
Yes,
slides.
what chapters are on the exam? Is it six? What chapters?
6 to 10. 6 to 10.
Okay, so you need to cover all of those. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, and you can see that this one has 152 slides.
Yeah.
I cannot, if I tell you, I can go quickly from, but it's going to be hard for you guys to grab. And then let me see what is the other one. Anatomy, physiology, innate skeletal system and muscular system. How many PowerPoints it has? 130. So if you want to do the test by tomorrow, is going to be Thursday, right? So by tomorrow, we have to complete these two. Okay. So that you can do the exam on Friday.
Okay, ma'am.
Is going to be easy for you guys or you want to read in the Monday?
I think we'd rather have some time to study.
Yeah, I think Monday would be.
The
Yes, please.
review questions that we have to go through.
Yeah, that's why I'm just telling. This is so many slides, but that's why I'm telling that.
We'll have it Monday, please.
I think
Monday?
Monday's better.
Yes.
So everybody
Yes.
agrees that?
Take some
Everybody
time
is
to
okay with
study as
that? Everybody, the
Yes.
majority of the class is okay with that? Okay.
Yes.
So we'll start the skeletal system today. We'll go up to the half. Okay. And then we are going to complete the rest of the skeletal system and the muscular system. Then, or I can, in 3 days, I can apart. So let's how much skeletal system we can learn. And then Friday, I am going to give you some time to read and then review. How you feel?
Yes,
It's
please.
we can organize in that way, right? It's just so many informations. That's why I am thinking my viewpoint. If I have to take the exam, I will feel, how I'm going to remember all those things. And it's in Moon, every point you are telling the important. I try to emphasize which one is important in your questions and other things, but till you have to do that one. Okay. So anyway, let us travel to the skeletal system now. We didn't do that video of this one, right? Let me see. Cell biology, tissues. Is that in a video crash course? Tissue crash course, video crash course. You can watch the video later, or you want to go with me the video? I don't know how long is the video. What you guys want to do?
We can watch now.
You can watch? Okay, so let us do. There are 4 videos, okay? So from the cell tissue body, okay.
Yeah.
When you discover candy cane ice cream now comes wrapped in chocolate cookie dough.
You can hear it, right?
So
We're cool.
Huh?
you may
Yes.
discover
Okay.
underground. This holiday, discover what's inside with the PC Insider's Report.
So as I was saying, ever since I switched to Lecturio, I've felt empowered, like I can study anytime.
Check out this amoeba. Pretty nice. Kind of a rugged, no-frills life form. The thing about amoebas is that they tend to do everything in the same place. They take in and digest their food and reject their waste and get through everything else they need to do all within a single cell. They don't need trillions of different cells working together to keep them alive. They don't need a bunch of structures to keep their stomachs away from their hearts, away from their lungs. They're content to just blob around and live the simple life. But we humans, along with the rest of the multicellular animal kingdom, are substantially more complex. We're all about cell specialization and compartmentalizing our bodies. Every cell in your body has its own specific job description related to maintaining your homeostasis, that balance of materials and energy that keeps you alive. And those cells are the most basic building blocks in the hierarchy of increasingly complex structures that make you what you are. We covered a lot of cell biology in Crash Course Bio, so if you haven't taken that course with us yet, or if you just want a refresher, you can go over there now. I will still be here when you get back. But with that ground already covered, we're going to skip ahead to when groups of similar cells come together to perform a common function in our tissues. Tissues are like the fabric of your body. In fact, the term literally means woven. And when 2 or more tissues combine, they form organs. Your kidneys and your lungs and your liver and other organs are all made of different types of tissues. But what function a certain part of your organ performs depends on what kind of tissue it's made of. In other words, the type of tissue defines its function. And we have 4 different primary tissues, each with a different job. Our nervous tissues provide us with control and communication. Muscle tissues give us movement. Epithelial tissues line our body cavities and organs and essentially cover and protect the body, while connective tissues provide support. If our cells are like words, then our tissues or groups of cells are like sentences, the beginning of a language. And your journey to becoming fluent in this language of your body, your ability to read, understand, and interpret it, begins today. Although physicians and artists have been exploring human anatomy for centuries, histology, the study of our tissues, is a much younger discipline. That's because in order to get all up in a body's tissues, we needed microscopes, and they weren't invented until the 1590s, when Hans and Zacharias Janssen, a father-son pair of Dutch spectacle makers, put some lenses in a tube and changed science forever. But as groundbreaking as those microscopes were then, they were a little better than something you might find in a cereal box today. That is to say, low in magnification and pretty blurry. So the heyday of microscopes didn't really get cracking until the late 1600s, when another Dutchman, Anton van Leeuwenhoek, became the first to make and use truly high-power microscopes. While other scopes at the time were lucky to get 50 times magnification, van Leeuwenhoek's had up to 270 times magnifying power, identifying things as small as 1,000th of a millimeter. Using his new scope, Leeuwenhoek was the first to observe microorganisms, bacteria, spermatozoa, and muscle fibers, earning himself the illustrious title of the father of microbiology for his trouble. levels. But even then, his amazing new optics weren't quite enough to launch the study of histology as we know it, because most individual cells in a tissue weren't visible in your average scope. It took another breakthrough, the invention of stains and dyes, to make that possible. To actually see a specimen under a microscope, you have to first preserve it or fix it, then slice it into super thin deli meat-like sections that let light through, and then stain that material to enhance its contrast. Because different stains latch onto different cellular structures, this process lets us see what's going on in any given tissue sample down to the specific parts of each individual cell. Some stains let us clearly see cells' nuclei, and as you learn to identify different tissues, the location, shape, size, or even absence of nuclei will be very important. Now, Leeuwenhoek was technically the first person to use a dye, one he made from saffron, to study biological structures under the scope in 1673 because the dude was a boss. But it really wasn't until nearly 200 years later in the 1850s that we really got the first true histological stain. And for that, we can thank German anatomist Joseph von Gerlach. Back in his day, a few scientists had been tinkering with staining tissues, especially with a compound called carmine, a red dye derived from the scales of crushed up insects. Gerlach and others had some luck using carmine to highlight different kinds of cell structures, but where Gerlach got stuck was in exploring the tissues of the brain. For some reason, he couldn't get the dye to stain brain cells, and the more stain he used, the worse the results were. So one day he tried making a diluted version of the stain, thinning out the carmine with ammonia and gelatin, and wetted a sample of brain tissue with it. Alas, still nothing. So he closed up his lab for the night, and as the story goes, in his disappointment, he forgot to remove the slice of someone's cerebellum that he had left sitting in the solution. He returned the next morning to find the long, slow soak in diluted carmine had stained all kinds of structures inside the tissue, including the nuclei of individual brain cells and what he described as fibers that seemed to link the cells together. It would be another 30 years before we knew what a neuron really looked like, but Gerlach's famous neural stain was a breakthrough in our understanding of nervous tissue. And it showed other anatomists how the combination of the right microscope and the right stain could open up our understanding of all of our body's tissues and how they make life possible. Today, we recognize the cells that Gerlach studied as a type of nervous tissue, which forms, you guessed it, the nervous system. That is, the brain and spinal cord of the central nervous system and the network of nerves in your peripheral nervous system. Combined, they regulate and control all of your body's functions. That basic nervous tissue has two big functions: sensing stimuli and sending electrical impulses through the body, often in response to those stimuli. And this tissue also is made up of two different types of cells, neurons and glial cells. Neurons are the specialized building blocks of the nervous system. Your brain...
Why they are doing this one? Okay. Crash course number 1 is the tissue. We didn't learn, and I don't know this is. Just give me it. Let me start from the 4th. What is showing that?
What is the word on the streets these days about?
Frasier.
I'm listening.
Technically, we're all just meat. Yeah, you could say that what makes us human is our emotions or thoughts or memories, but physically, we're not all that different from this. We're used to thinking of meat as the muscle tissue that people cook and eat, but the fact is you can eat that stuff raw. A chicken breast or a steak or a pork chop is tender enough that it doesn't need cooking. What does need cooking is all of the connective tissue that's in and around the muscle and gets in the way of our meal. So one of the main reasons humans began to roast and boil and bake meat in the first place was to break down those connective tissues that we can't chew so we could get the meat. Now you might have noticed that connective tissues kind of seem like a grab bag of materials that don't really fit in other groups. Our muscle, nervous, and epithelial tissue types are more uniform, more obviously grouped together. Sometimes our connective tissues just seem like the leftovers you throw in the stew pot. But appearances are deceiving, and our inability as a species to tolerate these tissues in our food is just one reminder that no matter how different tendon, bone, or a hunk of fat may appear, they are indeed very closely related. They all spring from the same embryonic cells, and their structures are dominated not by cells, but by an extracellular matrix full of fibers. And it's those fibers that have given humans the most trouble in our meat-eating history. It wasn't until we figured out how to cook this stuff that we were able to denature or change the natural structure of those protein fibers so that they became soft and pliable. Take a chicken, for example. You couldn't just pull the skin off a living bird. Like, ethically, you couldn't do that, but also you probably couldn't. Its living skin is anchored by connective tissue that's full of collagen fibers, but if you roast that chicken and break apart that collagen, suddenly the skin just peels right off with no effort at all. So connective tissues, as evidenced by this mess here, are good reminders of how sometimes things are more similar than they appear. They're also delicious, if you're into that. So we know what our connective tissues have in common, and we know that we've got 4 different types, but what do they look like, what do they do, and where are they found, both in your butcher shop and on your body? Perhaps your most diverse type is your classic connective tissue proper. It comes in both loose and dense subclasses based on how many fibers it has in its ground substance. Pull on the back of your hand. That fleshy tent there? That's one example of loose connective tissue. There's a lot of ground substance in here, and the elastin fibers help it snap back into place, while the collagen helps anchor it so you can't, like, snag your skin on a zipper and watch it just fly off. But try pulling on your Achilles tendon, or these wing tendons here, and there isn't a lot of give. That's because a tendon is an example of dense connective tissue with a lot more collagen. You could chew and chew and chew on a collagen-dense tendon and never get anywhere. That's why butchers trim off most dense connective tissue before selling cuts of meat. So loose connective tissues have fewer fibers and more cells and more ground substance. Areolar tissue is the most common loose connective tissue you have found all over your body, just under your epithelial tissue and wrapped around your organs. It's got a loose, random arrangement of fibers with just a few fibroblast cells that make those fibers. If you look at it under a microscope, you'll see that its most obvious feature is that it looks like it has a lot of open space in it. This makes areolar tissue great at holding the watery, salty ground substance that surrounding tissues draw from. Your adipose tissue, meanwhile, is your fat tissue, the loose connective tissue that's in here. Rather than being mostly ground substance, this one is mostly cells, adipocytes, which store lipids for later use, insulate the body against heat loss, and grow pot bellies and love handles. The average person's weight is about 18% adipose
Fascinate
tissue,
your
and it's those
answer,
fat stores that
adipocyte.
keep us alive
You got
when
that
food
one?
is scarce. With no fat stores, you'd
Nutrient
die within a few
storage.
days of your last sandwich.
Cells.
Reticular tissue is like areolar tissue, but with a woven mass of reticular fibers rather than collagen and elastin fibers, hence the name. This tissue provides the soft internal framework or stroma of the spleen, lymph nodes, and bone marrow, and it supports lots of developing blood cells. Just as your areolar tissue is a kind of sponge for watery ground substance, your reticular tissue is what holds your blood in place in many of your organs. Really, all of these loose connective tissue proper types share an airy dispersal of fibers, which is why they're easier to eat after cooking and why you can pull cooked chicken skin apart. On the other hand, you can't easily rip a tendon or a ligament in two or even chew it because it's made of that dense, regular tissue full of tight bundles of collagen fibers all running parallel. You can see how neat and smooth a slide sample looks under a scope, the fibers being those white, flexible structures. They provide great resistance to tension when that tension is exerted in one direction. That's why you find this tissue in your tendons, which connect muscle to bone or other muscle, and your ligaments, which bind bones together anywhere you got a joint. What if those collagen fibers aren't all stacked regularly in rows? Then it forms dense, irregular tissue, whose fibers are thicker and arranged erratically. It's found wherever tension might be exerted in lots of different directions, like the leathery dermis underlying your skin. And finally, your body has places that require more elasticity than rigidity, like say around your joints. That's where you'll find dense, elastic tissue. For example, connecting your vertebra so that your spine can curve and twist. Some of our largest artery walls are made of this stretchy, elastic tissue too, which provides both support and flexibility. From fat to tendons, connective tissue proper is the most diverse group in this tissue family. But for the last few minutes, you've also been watching a different type of connective tissue bob up and down as I talk. Cartilage. Cartilage doesn't have any blood or nerves, and it stands up against both tension and compression pretty well. It's that whitish gristle you see at the end of pork ribs or chicken wings in your grocer's freezer, and it's another thing that you're not going to have much luck chewing. Hyaline cartilage is your most common type. It's kind of glassy looking and provides pliable support. It connects your ribs to your sternum and keeps the tip of your nose all perky. Its ground substance is rich with those sticky, starchy proteoglycans, and although it has collagen fibers, when you look at it under a scope, you can't really see them. Instead, the tissue looks glassy, hence the name hyal, meaning glassy or transparent. Elastic cartilage is very similar to hyaline, but with more elastic fibers that are easier to see, and it's found in places where strength and stretchability are needed, like it's why I can pull on my ear without it ripping off. And just as your body needs firm parts and stretchy parts, it also needs shock absorbers. That's where your fibrocartilage comes in. It's dominated by thick fibers of collagen and is good at withstanding lots of pressure, so it makes up the discs between your vertebra and your knee joints where it keeps your bones from grinding together. And speaking of bones, although you might not think of something so hard and durable as living tissue, bones definitely are. The word bone can refer to an entire organ, like your femur or scapula, or just bone tissue. And that bone or osseous tissue is just calcified connective tissue, perfect for supporting and protecting your body's various structures. Spongy bone tissue is typically found in the heads of long bones and in the inner layer of flat bones like the sternum. This spongy tissue is strong but porous, even to the naked eye, and it uses this extra room to make and store bone marrow. Compact bone tissue, on the other hand, is quite dense with no visible spaces. It forms the external layer of your bones and stores calcium for bone cells to use to make more tissue. Now, if bone doesn't conjure up your traditional image of a tissue, blood probably doesn't either. I mean, it doesn't seem to connect things or lend support, and yet blood is our fourth type of connective tissue. And when you think about it, it clearly does connect distant parts of your body and provides some rigidity to other parts. Just like other connective tissues, blood develops from mesenchyme and is made up of cells surrounded by an extracellular non-living matrix. In this case, the ground substance is your blood plasma, which has protein fibers floating around in it. Your blood's main job, of course, is delivering goods. It transports cells and nutrients and hormones and wastes and all kinds of other stuff, keeping all the parts of your body connected in the process. Most of your blood cells are erythrocytes, or your famous red blood cells that zoom around carrying oxygen and carbon dioxide through your body. You've also got larger infection-fighting white blood cells, or leukocytes, in the mix, and your platelets, the small cell fragments needed for blood clotting so that a paper cut doesn't bleed you dry. Unlike other connective tissues, it doesn't really have what you would call fibers, but instead has a bunch of protein dissolved in the plasma, and those protein molecules will form fiber-like structures when your blood needs to clot. So, you take your four primary types of tissues and all of the subtypes of each that's taken us weeks to explore, and you can probably see how they can come together in many, many combinations to form all of your body's organs. And just like that chaotic cafeteria packed with middle schoolers, we'd be hopeless messes without our hierarchy of organization, our inner and outer boundaries, and the ability of our systems to communicate with each other. That is what our tissues do for us.
Okay. This is neurons. We don't need the neurons. Okay. So video. Where I can go now? Video. Okay, so this one video. Camel paw, tissue. This one is done. Okay. Okay. Then let me go again. Course. Mano is in this unit 7, 8. We did number 4. Let me see. Number 3. What is it? Number 3.
Hurry time!
Elements that are being feisty and fidgety and basically not cooperating, there's pretty much only one thing you can do. You gotta keep them separated. And there's a whole system of biological tissue that's dedicated to doing just that, creating order where there would otherwise be total mayhem. Because you, and pretty much every other animal, is made up of incredibly complex, feisty, fidgety systems that need to be kept apart to some extent if they're gonna get anything done. Think of it this way. Say all the middle schoolers in your town wanna have lunch together at the same time on Taco Tuesday. If you crammed everyone into one giant lunchroom, you'd have a lot of interesting and talented people in one place, yes, but you'd also never get a handle on them with everyone shoved and talking and jostling and flirting and farting and stepping on toes and haggling over tater tots. It'd be like a John Hughes movie gone horribly wrong. So what you need is a solid system of organization, like separate lunch lines for separate groups of kids or tables that arrange students in alphabetical order. Your body is like that crowded lunchroom. It needs order for it to function. It can't can't have your liver all up in your brain or squished between your kidneys. Your organs and their systems need their personal space. And that is where your unsung epithelial tissue steps in, like a burly gym teacher with a whistle and a plan. This is the tissue that lines and covers and generally organizes your body, creating order from what would be chaos. Without epithelial tissue, you'd essentially be a mushy pile of unarticulated goo. When we talk about your epithelial tissue, we're really talking about two things. There's the proper epithelium, which covers and lines your outer and inner body, and then there is the glandular epithelium, which forms glands and secretes hormones and other substances. Your primary epithelium protects your whole body inside and out. It's a great organizer, partitioning everything into separate but connected units. It covers the surface of your body when it combines with connective tissue to create skin, but it also lines your body cavities and coats the internal and external walls of many of your organs. Because your body doesn't just interact with the outside world through your skin. We, and all animals from the simplest worms on up the tree of life, are really just tubes, corridors of tissue running from a mouth to an anus. Epithelial tissue covers both the inside and the outside of that U-tube. To get a better sense of what I mean, take a look at this balloon. The latex is like the outer covering of your body, in part made up of epithelial tissue. It separates what's inside the balloon from the rest of the world. Now, if I stick my hand in there, you can see how, while the tissue still forms an outer layer, it also folds in on itself, creating a continuous barrier that lines all of the cavities. In a very similar way, the membranes covering your lungs, for example, are actually invaginations of your epithelium, where the tissue that makes up your U-tube folds to form a cavity, just like this balloon when I push my fingers into it. The epithelium does all this to protect your deeper layers of tissue from injury or infection, like, for example, by lining your stomach with epithelial cells that produce mucus so that you don't digest yourself along with your lunch. And all of your epithelial tissues are avascular, meaning they don't have a blood supply. Instead, they rely on the blood supply and the supporting connective tissues around them for the materials they need. But these tissues come in different varieties that serve different purposes. And a lot of what classifies the different types of epithelium boils down to their shape and layering. That is, the shape of the individual cells and the number of layers that they form in. And there are three basic shapes: squamous, cuboidal, and columnar. And they're pretty easy to tell apart because, unlike most terminology you'll be exposed to in this course, their names actually describe what they look like. Squamous cells are flat. Their name means scale, and they look kind of squished like fish scales. Even the cell's nucleus, which gets darkly stained and is usually easy to see, is flattened. Cuboidal cells are, you guessed it, cubish shaped, about as tall as they are wide. They absorb nutrients and produce secretions like sweat. Their nucleus is pretty circular. Columnar cells are tall and thick and look like columns, and they cushion underlying tissues. And as if they were cuboidal cells that got stretched tall, their nuclei are stretched into an ellipse. And here's yet another instance where the form of a structure relates to its purpose. In this case, the shape of each kind of epithelial cell correlates with its function. For example, squamous cells are flat, which makes it easy for materials like oxygen to move across them to the other side. So we see these kinds of cells where absorption or transportation is most important, like in, say, the air sacs of your lungs or in your blood vessels. But if the cells that make up a tissue need to, say, brew up hormones or mucus, they'll need all the internal machinery it takes to make that stuff, and that takes up a lot of space. So those cells can't be flat, they gotta be cuboidal or columnar to accommodate more room for taking care of business. So that stomach lining that I mentioned, for example, is made up of big columnar cells because they have to make and secrete mucus. But when it comes to what kind of cells are found where, an important thing to keep in mind is the fact that cells are, biologically speaking, expensive. They take a lot of time and energy and raw materials to make. So in places where you lose a lot of cells, like your outer skin or in your mouth, you have more squamous cells because they're smaller and flatter and therefore cheaper, practically disposable, rather than big, expensive cuboidal or columnar ones. Which brings me to the other trait that we use to classify epithelial tissue. It's layering. A simple epithelium has only one layer of cells. A stratified type has multiple layers set on top of each other like the bricks and mortar of a wall. And pseudo-stratified epithelium is mostly just one layer, but the cells can be different shapes and sizes, and the nuclei can be at lots of different levels, so it looks sort of messy and multi-layered, even though it really isn't. And when we describe a type of epithelial tissue, like in a lab setting, we cite both its shape and its layering. You can think of a tissue's first name as its number of layers, and its last name same as the shape of its cells. For example, a simple squamous epithelium refers to a single layer of flat, scale-like cells, like the lining of the air sacs deep in your lungs. A stratified cuboidal tissue, meanwhile, would have layers of cube-shaped cells, like the linings of the ducts that leak sweat and spit. When you put the shape of a cell together with its type of layering, you can begin to see how both traits inform the function of your epithelial tissue. Let's go back to those squamous cells. Because they're thin like scales, it takes many layers of them to form a tissue that's thick enough to offer protection. So you end up with a really dense stack of cells that on an individual basis are small and cheap to make. That's why when I scratch my hand or hit the inside of my mouth with a toothbrush, I can lose a couple of layers, no big deal. Those squamous cells are a dime a dozen. There's still lots of layers left. Plus, epithelial tissue regenerates really quickly. But if you, say, get tossed off a moving motorcycle, you lose a lot more layers. And if your road rash is really bad, you could scrape all the way through all of those squamous cells down to the nerves and the blood and all of the underlying connective tissue, plowing through a lot more expensive cells and wind up with a real, can you please get me to the hospital, I need to go to the hospital kind of problem. Of course, when we talk about epithelial tissue protecting you, it's not always protecting you from the outside world. It also creates order among all of those rambunctious 7th graders that are your organs. And here it's important to note that all of your epithelial cells are polar, meaning they have distinct sides. The apical or upper side is exposed to either the outside of your body or whatever internal cavity it's lining. The basal side or inner surface is tightly attached to the basement membrane, a thin layer of mostly collagen fibers that helps hold the epithelium together and anchors it to the next deeper layer, your connective tissue. Many of these boundaries that the cells form aren't absolute. Instead, they're selectively permeable, allowing for some level of absorption, filtration, and excretion of substances. The tissue lining your small intestines, for instance, is what allows you to absorb nutrients through diffusion and active transport, so that's pretty important. And all of your urinary waste gets filtered through a different epithelial lining in your kidneys. So by now you're probably starting to get it. Every interaction that your body has with the rest of the physical universe is made possible somehow by your epithelium. But that is not all. Remember, your glands are also made up largely of epithelial tissue, so it also plays a big role in facilitating all of your secretions, from sweat and mucus to hormones and enzymes. This glandular epithelium forms two different kinds of glands. Your endocrine glands, the ones that secrete hormones right into your bloodstream or to nearby cells, and your exocrine glands, the type that secrete their juices into tubes or ducts that lead to the outside of the body, or the inside of your tube, rather than right into the blood. The hormone thyroxine, for example, is secreted by an endocrine gland, your thyroid, and it needs to be distributed throughout the entire body so that it can stimulate the metabolism in all of your cells. Some examples of exocrine secretions would be sweat, saliva, mucus, stomach acid, and milk if you're lactating. All those secretions go right into ducts where they're ferried to an epithelial surface, which could be your outer layer of skin in the case of your sweat, or the edge of your stomach lining if it's your stomach acid. So hey, the system works, and it's due in large part to the humorless gym teacher that is your epithelial tissue. It may not be a ton of fun, but darn it gets results. Today, you learned how your unsung epithelial tissue creates the inner and outer boundaries that keep you alive. We looked at how proper epithelial tissue is classified by both layering, simple or stratified, and shape, squamous, cuboidal, or columnar, and how the structure of these tissue types match their function. We also talked about how epithelial cells are polar, having both apical and basal sides, and are selectively permeable. And lastly, we took a brief look at how our glandular epithelial tissue forms both our endocrine and exocrine glands. Thanks for watching, especially to all of our subbable subscribers.
Here's one thing you need to do before buying anything online. Don't spend
Did you do
another
this
dime
one
on
or no?
Amazon until you watch this first. Watch this. I can show you how to get the sweetest deal.
When you're dealing with
But
certain
this
elements
one
that
we
are being
did.
feisty and fidgety and basically not cooperating, there's pretty much only one
Oh dear. This part.
Yeah, when you're dealing with certain elements that are being feisty and fidgety and basically not cooperating, there's pretty much only one thing you can do. You gotta keep them separated. And there's a whole system of biological tissue that's dedicated to doing just that.
Yes, we did
order
this one.
where there would otherwise be total mayhem.
Okay,
Because
so-
you...
Okay.
Check out this amoeba. Pretty nice.
We
Kind of a
didn't do
rugged,
this
no
one,
frills
I
life.
know. Okay. And how many video you watch? This one is need to be done. How it went to here? This is, I don't know what to find the announcement content. Okay, so this is the crash course. This one, tissues. Let us see whether this one.
When you're dealing with certain
This
elements
one
that are
we
being
did
feisty
one.
and fidgety and
Okay.
basically not cooperating, there's pretty much only one thing you can do. You gotta keep them separated. And there's a whole system of biological tissue that's dedicated to doing just that, creating order where there would otherwise be
That one
total
we
mayhem. Because you...
Which
We
one
did part
didn't?
2. We did part 2 and part 4.
Okay, we didn't do this one, right? Okay, part
Yes.
3, let us see. Because part 1 has the other things, that's why. Okay,
Yeah.
let's
When you're dealing with certain elements that are being feisty and fidgety and basically not cooperating, there's pretty much only one thing you can do. You gotta keep them separated. And there's a whole system of biological tissue that's dedicated to doing just that, creating order where there would otherwise be total mayhem. Because you and pretty much every other animal is made up of incredibly complex, feisty, fidgety systems that need to be kept apart to some extent if they're gonna get anything done. Think of it this way. Say all the middle schoolers in your town want to have lunch together at the same time on Taco Tuesday. If you crammed everyone into one giant lunchroom, you'd have a lot of interesting and talented people in one place, yes, but you'd also never get a handle on them with everyone shoved and talking and jostling and flirting and farting and stepping on toes and haggling over tater tots. It'd be like a John Hughes movie gone horribly wrong. So what you need is a solid system of organization, like separate lunch lines for separate groups of kids or tables that arrange students in alphabetical order. Your body is like that crowded lunchroom. It needs order for it to function. It can't have your liver all up in your brain or squished between your kidneys. Your organs and their systems need their personal space. And that is where your unsung epithelial tissue steps in, like a burly gym teacher with a whistle.
We
And a
did
plan.
it or
This is
not?
the tissue
We did
that
this one,
lines
yeah.
and covers
Yeah,
and
so
generally
that's what I'm
organizes
feeling.
your body, creating order from what would be chaos.
Okay, so where is the content? So we did 3 of them. We did part 2, we did part 4, right?
Yes.
And part 3 looks the same.
Yeah, part 2 and 3 are the same.
Same. Let us do that. So the part 1. Just watch it, this one, and if we can read it later, it's going to be easy for you guys.
Last night, I made a wish on a star. I've got a good feeling about it.
Check out this amoeba. Pretty nice. Kind of a rugged, no-frills life form. The thing about amoebas is that they tend to do everything in the same place. They take in and digest their food and reject their waste and get through everything else they need to do all within a single cell. They don't need trillions of different cells working together to keep them alive. They don't need a bunch of structures to keep their stomachs away from their hearts, away from their lungs. They're content to just blob around and live the simple life. But we humans, along with the rest of the multicellular animal kingdom, are substantially more complex. We're all about cell specialization and compartmentalizing our bodies. Every cell in your body has its own specific job description related to maintaining your homeostasis, that balance of materials and energy that keeps you alive. And those cells are the most basic building blocks in the hierarchy of increasingly complex structures that make you what you are. We covered a lot of cell biology in Crash Course Bio, so if you haven't taken that course with us yet, or if you just want a refresher, you can go over there now. I will still be here when you get back. But with that ground already covered, we're going to skip ahead to when groups of similar cells come together to perform a common function in our tissues. Tissues are like the fabric of your body. In fact, the term literally means woven. And when two or more tissues combine, they form organs. Your kidneys and your lungs and your liver and other organs are all made of different types of tissues. But what function a certain part of your organ performs depends on what kind of tissue it's made of. In other words, the type of tissue defines its function. And we have 4 different primary tissues, each with a different job. Our nervous tissues provide us with control and communication. Muscle tissues give us movement. Epithelial tissues line our body cavities and organs and essentially cover and protect the body, while connective tissues provide support. If our cells are like words, then our tissues or groups of cells are like sentences, the beginning of a language. And your journey to becoming fluent in this language of your body, your ability to read, understand, and interpret it, begins today. Although physicians and artists have been exploring human anatomy for centuries, histology, the study of our tissues, is a much younger discipline. That's because in order to get all up in a body's tissues, we needed microscopes, and they weren't invented until the 1590s, when Hans and Zacharias Janssen, a father-son pair of Dutch spectacle makers, put some lenses in a tube and changed science forever. But as groundbreaking as those microscopes were then, they were a little better than something you might find in a cereal box today. That is to say, low in magnification and pretty blurry. So the heyday of microscopes didn't really get cracking until the late 1600s, when another Dutchman, Anton van Leeuwenhoek, became the first to make and use truly high-power microscopes. While other scopes at the time were lucky to get 50 times magnification, van Leeuwenhoek's had up to 270 times magnifying power, identifying things as small as 1,000th of a millimeter. Using his new scope, Leeuwenhoek was the first to observe microorganisms, bacteria, spermatozoa, and muscle fibers, earning himself the illustrious title of the father of microbiology for his troubles. But even then, his amazing new optics weren't quite enough to launch the study of histology as we know it, because most individual cells in a tissue weren't visible in your average scope. It took another breakthrough, the invention of stains and dyes, to make that possible. To actually see a specimen under a microscope, you have to first preserve it, or fix it, then slice it into super thin, deli meat-like sections that let light through, and then stain that material to enhance its contrast. Because different stains latch onto different cellular structures, this process lets us see what's going on in any given tissue sample down to the specific parts of each individual cell. Some stains let us clearly see cells' nuclei, and as you learn to identify different tissues, the location, shape, size, or even absence of nuclei will be very important. Now, Leeuwenhoek was technically the first person to use a dye, one he made from saffron, to study biological structures under the scope in 1673, because the dude was a boss. But it really wasn't until nearly 200 years later, in the 1850s, that we really got the first true histological stain. And for that, we can thank German anatomist Joseph von Gerlach. Back in his day, a few scientists had been tinkering with staining tissues, especially with a compound called carmine, a red dye derived from the scales of crushed-up insects. Gerlach and others had some luck using carmine to highlight different kinds of cell structures, but where Gerlach got stuck was in exploring the tissues of the brain. For some reason, he couldn't get the dye to stain brain cells, and the more stain he used, the worse the results were. So one day, he tried making a diluted version of the stain, thinning out the carmine with ammonia and gelatin, and wetted a sample of brain tissue with it. Alas, still nothing. So he closed up his lab for the night, and as the story goes, in his disappointment, he forgot to remove the slice of someone's cerebellum that he had left sitting in the solution. He returned the next morning to find the long, slow soak in diluted carmine had stained all kinds of structures inside the tissue, including the nuclei of individual brain cells and what he described as fibers that seemed to link the cells together. It would be another 30 years before we knew what a neuron really looked like, but Gerlach's famous neural stain was a breakthrough in our understanding of nervous tissue. And it showed other anatomists how the combination of the right microscope and the right stain could open up our understanding of all of our body's tissues and how they make life possible. Today, we recognize the cells that Gerlach studied as a type of nervous tissue, which forms, you guessed it, the nervous system. That is, the brain and spinal cord of the central nervous system and the network of nerves in your peripheral nervous system. Combined, they regulate and control all of your body's functions. That basic nervous tissue has 2 big functions: sensing stimuli and sending electrical impulses through the body, often in response to those stimuli. And this tissue also is made up of 2 different types of cells: neurons and glial cells. Neurons are the specialized building blocks of the nervous system. Your brain alone contains billions of them. They're what generate and conduct the electrochemical nerve impulses that let you think and dream and eat nachos or do anything. But they're also all over your body. If you're petting a fuzzy puppy or you touch a cold piece of metal or rough sandpaper, it's the neurons in your skin's nervous tissue that sense that stimuli and send the message to your brain to say, like, cuddly or cold or why am I petting sandpaper? No matter where they are, though, each neuron has the same anatomy, consisting of the cell body, the dendrites, and the axon. The cell body, or soma, is the neuron's life support. It's got all the necessary goods like a nucleus and mitochondria and DNA. The bushy dendrites look like the trees that they're named after and collect signals from other cells to send back to the soma. They are the listening end. The long rope-like axon is the transmission cable. It carries messages to other neurons and muscles and glands. Together, all of these things combine to form nerves of all different sizes laced throughout your body. The other type of nervous cells, the glial cells, are like the neuron's pit crew, providing support, insulation, and protection, and tethering them to blood vessels. But sensing the world around you isn't much use if you can't do anything about it, which is why we've also got muscle tissues. Unlike your nervous tissues, your muscle tissues can contract and move, which is super handy if you want to walk or chew or breathe. Muscle tissue is well vascularized, meaning it's got a lot of blood coming and going, and it comes in 3 flavors: skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. Your skeletal muscle is what attaches to all of the bones in your skeleton, supporting you and keeping your posture in line. Skeletal muscle tissues pull on your bones or skin as they contract to make you move. You can see how skeletal muscle tissue has long cylindrical cells. It looks kind of clean and smooth with obvious striations that resemble little pinstripes. Many of the actions made possible in this tissue, like your wide range of facial expressions or pantheon of dance moves, are voluntary. Your cardiac tissue, on the other hand, works involuntarily, which is great because it forms the walls of your heart, and it would be really distracting to have to remind it to contract once every second. This tissue is only found in your heart, and its regular contractions are what propel blood through your circulatory system. Cardiac muscle tissue is also striped or striated, but unlike skeletal muscle tissue, their cells are generally uninucleate, meaning that they have just one nucleus. You can also see that this tissue is made of a series of sort of messy cell shapes that look like they divide and converge rather than running parallel to each other. But where these cells join end to end, you can see darker striations. These are the glue that hold the muscle cells together when they contract, and they contain pores so that electrical and chemical signals can pass from one cell to the next. And finally, you've got the smooth muscle tissue, which lines the walls of most of your blood vessels and hollow organs like those in your digestive and urinary tracts and your uterus if you have one. It's called smooth because, as you can see, unlike the other two, it lacks that striation. Its cells are sort of short and tapered at the ends and are arranged to form tight-knit sheets. This tissue is also involuntary. Like the heart, these organs squeeze substances through by alternately contracting and relaxing without you having to think about it. Now, one thing that every A&P student has to be able to do is identify different types of muscle tissue from a stained specimen. So, pop quiz hotshot. See if you can match the following tissue stains with their corresponding muscle tissue types. Don't forget to pay attention to striations and cell shape. Let's begin with this. Which type of tissue is it? The cells are striated. Each one only has one nucleus, but the giveaway here is probably the cell's branching structure, where their offshoots meet with other nearby cells where they form those intercalated discs. It's cardiac muscle. Oh, they're uninucleate cells too, and they also are packed pretty closely together, but no striations. They're smooth. So this is smooth muscle. Leaving us with an easy one: long and straight cells with obvious striations and multiple nuclei. This could only be skeletal muscle tissue. If you got all of them right, congratulations. Give yourself a pat on your superior posterior medial skeletal muscles. You're well on your way to understanding histology. Today, you learned that cells combine to form our nerve.
So you have covered all the videos. Okay, so you guys are now master. Ready for the exam. Okay, let us move to the next 11:25. Okay, we can do some. We did unit. What is the unit? We did the unit 8. Now we have to do the unit 9. Skeletal system. Bone. We have some video joints. Okay, so we are going to do that tomorrow. Okay, let us go to the skeletal PowerPoint. Skeletal system. What skeleton means? It's bones, joints, cartilage, ligaments. These are the parts of the skeletal system. We have bone, we have joints, we have cartilage. Where do you have the cartilage? We just learned.
Hi, Yali.
Hyaline cartilage. Where I can find it?
Nose,
Everywhere.
ribs,
Yes.
ear.
Right.
Yeah. We can find on the when it's connecting, the ribs are connecting with the sternum, right?
Yes.
We can find some fibrous cartilage in between the vertebra, right? Okay. So ligaments. And then we are going to talk about the other, what is the difference between the ligament and tendon? That questions come too often. So what parts we have? We have the bones, skeletal system. Obviously, bones needs to be joined. Otherwise, we cannot get the full structure of a human body or any animal body. Then you have the cartilage, soft parts, which gives you the little bit flexibility so that it doesn't tear apart, but little the flexibility, and the ligaments, which holds the bone, connect the bone each other. That is the ligament. So what two main division of our skeletal system? You have the axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton. Axial means which is the total body, like the main center body, that is the axial skeleton. And appendicular skeleton means the leaves or appendages. What we have for our case, we have the upper limbs and lower limbs. Those are the appendicular skeletons. What are the function of the bone? We all know mainly it supports the body, protects the soft organs like the rib cage, protects your heart, protects your lung, protects part of your digestive system. Same thing. When you have the spines, it gives you the firm structure, it protects your backside and give the, sorry, your hip bone, protect your lower abdominal area. So this is the example get, they support the body, protect soft organs. What type of organ? Skull. And it protects the brain. Vertebrae or spinal column protects your spinal cord. The spinal, which is another, spinal cord is the main stem from the brain, the neuronal transverse tissue, which sends all the nerves all around the body. So that is the spinal cord. Then we have the rib cage for thoracic cavity organs. What another it does, it allow movement due to attached skeletal muscles, right? So, and also what it does inside the bone, it stores mineral and fats. What type of minerals and fats? They are stored in the calcium and phosphorus. We know these are the two main components we need for the bone formation. So calcium and phosphorus. And fat in the internal marrow cavity. They put some fats, store some fats inside the, the bone marrow. So the liquid portion that is internal marrow. We are going to learn which type of bone which contains what type of mineral or fat later. So, and also what is another formation? All main site of the formation of the all blood cells is inside the bone marrow. Later we are going to divide which bone marrow, red bone marrow or yellow bone marrow. Wait, but main all blood cells, all types of blood cells, starting for RBC, WBCs, thrombocytes, everything is formed inside the bone marrow. That's the blood cell. And what is the name of the formation of any blood cells? It's called the hematopoiesis. Formation of all types of blood cells, hematopoiesis. Poiesis means generation or formation. Hemato is heme. Leukopoiesis means?
Red blood cells.
What? Say again.
White.
White blood
White
cells.
blood.
White blood
Leuko
cells.
means white.
Yeah.
Erythropoiesis?
Red
Erythropoiesis?
blood cells.
Making
Thrombopoiesis,
of the red blood cells. Making of the red blood cells.
formation, yes. Thrombopoiesis,
Platelets.
Making of
flat. Okay,
platelets.
okay, good. So, but hematopoiesis is the formation of all types of blood cells. Don't
Blood
get
cells.
confused. Yeah,
Right.
if they give you formation of white blood cells, give the option hematopoiesis, leukopoiesis, erythropoiesis, your answer is going to be the leukopoiesis. Say for example, blood cell formation, hematopoiesis, leukopoiesis, thrombopoiesis. What is going to be the answer? Hematopoiesis. Clear? Okay, got it? So that's what the very specific points I'm just focusing on that. So main functions of the bone: support the body, protection of the soft organs, allow movement, and store minerals, fat, and blood cell formation. This is adult skeleton has 206 bones because the child or fetal has more bones that we are going to come later. The questions comes. That's why until adult skeleton, whenever the question will come, you have to see the adult or the child or the birth or the newborn. Okay, newborn. So adult skeleton has 206 bones. What are the two basic types of bone tissues they said? They have the compact bone and spongy bone. Compact means homogeneous and it's hard. And spongy, you understand, that is small needle. When you break the bones, you can see inside there is a small needle-like process in the bone. So it has more open spaces because there is the bone marrow line, spongy bone inside. The compact bone is the outside. It gives the total bone is a compact and closed, but inside is a hollow. It's a little bit spongy, not totally like the tube-like hollow, but there are the space, and those space is formed by the spongy bone because it has many open spaces. So what type? Two basic type of bone tissue: compact bone and spongy bones. Okay, see how it looks like. The top of the head is the spongy bone, shock absorber. Then the compact bone, which give the more protection, skull. It give the more protection so that brain can be protected. So this looks the spongy bone. These are the small holes. It's like the, how you are going to describe in general language. So it has more holes so that it can give you the place where the bone marrows can stay, and where the bone marrow means the site for blood cell formation and other things. So now we know the bone, types of bone, how many types of bones we have. We have shape bone. As per shape, this is classification of the bones. How many types of bones tissue we have, compact and spongy. But shape wise, how many types of bone we have? We have the long bones, we have the short bones, we have the flat bones, and some irregular bones. So now for example, these are the long bones, that the humerus. Humerus is on the upper arm, which connects our shoulder bone to the lower arm. So this is the long bone. See here, this is the sternum. These questions will come. Long bone, give an example of the long bone, or humerus. It's a long bone, short bone, flat bone, irregular bone. So humerus is a long bone. The same way, see, this is the long bone, humerus, tibia. But this one is a flat bone, which is sternum, which is connecting the vertebrae to the in the center. Here, this yellow, light blue is the cartilage, because it needs. Why you need the cartilage here? Anyone can answer? Why you need the cartilage in the front? Why is not the totally bony?
To connect the bones.
No, bones can connect totally. It can be bony, total bony. For what? Why you need that?
For protects the bone joints and bones.
No.
Joints and bone, yeah.
No,
Must-
when you're breathing and then so it can
Exactly. It can expand when
while
you are
you're
breathing
breathing.
in, or your heart is, yeah, it can give you the flexibility to expand the rib cage. Cartilage is soft, so it can give you the little bit flexibility to exhale. When you are inhaling, it's start, you will feel choked. So it gives you the flexibility to expand the rib cage. That's why we have the cartilage, soft cartilage there. Okay. In ear, we have the fibrous cartilage. It's flexible, but you cannot pull it, stretch it, the ear. You can fold it, but you cannot stretch it. These are the irregular bones where this is the vertebral column, irregular vertebra. Vertebra is as the irregular shape. Different vertebra has different shapes. That's why it's called the irregular bones. And the joint here, this one, in this one, this small, these are the short bones. Okay, so we have 4 types of bone. We have long bone, we have short bone, we have the flat bone, and we have the irregular bones. The long bones, obviously, long bones means longer than they are wide. See, it's long than they wide. Shaft with head situated at both ends. They have shaft. These are called the shaft, the head. These are the shaft. This is the closed portion and the both ends. Okay. Contain mostly compact bone. That we already told you that compact bones is going to be hard. All of the bones of the limbs except wrist, ankle and kneecap bones are the long bones. So what are they said? That except wrist, ankle and kneecap bones. So what are those? The wrist bone, ankle bones and kneecap bones. Kneecap means the patella, where the connecting. So these are only the short bones. Otherwise, your appendicular skeleton bones are mainly the long bones, except, again I repeat, your finger bones, your ankle bones, and your kneecap bones. So these are all long bones. So you have, what is that? Humerus, femur. Okay, so they are all the long bones. See, for example, long bone. So this is the long bone. This is the long bone. Okay, this is also part of long bone. This is part of long bone. This is the long bone. This is the long bone. So all these are the long bones. That's why this give the example on the femur and humerus. But the tibia, fibula, or radius or ulna, these are all long bones. This is the humerus, radius, and ulna. These are also long bone. This is the femur. This is tibia and fibula. So these are also long bone. Okay, so mainly your appendicular skeleton, appendix, limbs, all bones are long bones except what? Tell me. Repeat.
Except the wrist, the
question.
ankles,
Wrist, ankle, and
The knees.
kneecap,
kneecap. Not the knee. Kneecap.
kneecap.
Okay, good. So what are the short bones? Generally, is a cube shaped, contains mostly spongy bones. So the vertebral column, right? Vertebra, these are mainly the spongy bones. Bones on the wrist, ankle, and also the vertebral columns and the patella. So these are the spongy bones because it needs soften. It can move. That's why we get the arthritis here, probably so fast. So these, they are the mainly the short bones and also the some vertebral columns. Those are the vertebral columns is the short bones, but it's the irregular shape. That's why it has been considered as a irregular shaped bones. You can ask me, that's why I told you this is also short bones, but those are shapes are irregular. So that's why it is considered as the irregular shaped bone. But here you see all the bones are equal. Shape is good, but they are short. So that's why it's called the short bone. So it could includes short bones, mainly the spongy bone, long bones, mainly the compact bones. Notes, all notes, write it down. The long bones, humerus, radius, ulna, femur, tibia, fibula. So humerus in the hand, upper arm, and in the leg we have the
Femur.
sorry, sorry, my voice is getting femur, tibia, and fibula. Okay,
Yeah.
continuously speaking for 4 hours, right? Every day. Yeah. So that is the thing, and then and we have this is the sesamoid bones. This is the patella, also a short bone. Okay. Examples: carpals, tarsals. The ankle bones are called here. All the wrist bones are called the carpals, and the ankle bones are called tarsals. They have difference. This is a metacarpal, carpals, because depending upon the size and continuously going on. So the wrist bones, the name of the carpal. Most of you heard the name, the carpal tunnel syndrome, right? Carpal tunnel syndrome. The nerves pass through a hole here and supply in the fingers. Sometimes the hole is a kind of tendon type of things. Is when it becomes thickened due to the continuous use of our hands badly, computer, this and that, then it gives the pressure on the nerve. Then we feel the pain, tingling. So that is the carpal tunnel syndrome. So what they does the surgery, they cut the band so that the pressure has gone. That is the carpal tunnel syndrome, and it's the surgery. Okay, so this is giving the carpals and tarsals. These are the short bones. This one is joining from the lower limb bones with the tarsals. There is one bone is called the talus. This is also short bone. But this is irregular in shape also. So now flat bones. Flat bones means it's flat. They are usually curved. This is also compact bone, but it's surrounded by a spongy bone. This is the. So basically, again I repeat, long bone, compact bone. Short bone is, short bones are
Spongy.
spongy bone. Then flat bone, it has compact bone
Compact and
surrounded by a
surrounded
layer of
by
spongy
sponge.
bone. Okay, so because it can act as the cushion and also give the stability. Okay, so what are the examples? Skull, ribs, sternum. Skull bones, ribs bones, and sternum. This is the sternum. This already they have showed you, spongy bone, compact bone. This is the sternum, flat bone. This is the main flat bone in our body. Questions come sternum, or give an example of the flat bone. So you can give the sternum, or they give you the sternum, they are going to write it flat bone, spongy bone, long bone, whatever maybe, you have to write the answer is a flat bone. So now we are coming to the irregular bones. Irregular means irregular shape. Do not fit into other classification categories. Doesn't need that line to learn. So it's a irregular bones mean irregular. What are that? Vertebrae and hip bones. So vertebrae, see, there are different types of bones. It's not regular. This is the vertebrae, irregular bone, vertebra. Okay. So now if we go to the anatomy of the bone, little bit going inside the bone. What is that? Diaphysis is the shaft. It is composed of compact bone. What are the shaft? These are the endpoints. This has to be with the compact bone. These are called the shaft. And epiphysis, ends of the bone, composed of mostly spongy bones. We are going to do that. So when is articulated, so this part is called the diaphysis. and this called is the epiphysis. Epiphysis is the region of the bone growth. When the bone from the beginning, from the kids, they become adult, the growth takes place in this place called the epiphysis. So diaphysis is this area, compact bone. And distal epiphysis, one is distal epiphysis, one is the proximal epiphysis. So what is in the proximal epiphysis? You have the cartilage. Same thing at the end. Cartilage. You can see when you eat the chicken bones or something, you can very soft cartilage things, they have the cartilage here. This area, the epiphysis area, is mainly the spongy bone. But the diaphysis area give you the more strength because this area is attached with the other part. But this you have to be very strong. So the middle area is the diaphysis. So diaphysis is made up of compact bone. These we are going to come little later. What is the anatomy of the bone? So this is just now. We are coming to the anatomy of a long bone. Outside covering of the diaphysis is called the peristonium. Okay. This is made up of, you doesn't need to. Outside covering of the diaphysis is the peristonium. We have arteries inside the bone, obviously, if you can, and perforating. There lot of underlying sequence peristonium. This is the peristonium, the outer covering, and you can see if the medullary cavity, what is kind of hollow where the bone marrow stays. So you can see what is endosteum, how it looks like. This is the outside covering. This is the peristonium. This is the fibers, what is there inside the peristonium. Here the artery and the blood supplies come from the outside. Then you can see the hole. This is the perforating fibers which is covering this one. From the hole, it goes inside to supply the bone. And this is, we have the yellow bone marrow and red bone marrow. We also have mainly the yellow bone marrow in the adult. We have some red bone marrow. We can see it when there is a need of formation of some, mainly the kids. Okay. So as I as I already told you, this is the anatomy of a long bone continues. It has articular cartilage, right? We have seen it before. This is called the articular cartilage at the proximal end. It covers the external surface of the epiphysis. And what type of nature is that? Hyaline cartilage. Why we need the hyaline cartilage there? To decrease the friction at joint surfaces. If it is to bone and bone. So actually when we have the arthritis, osteoarthritis, what happens? The cartilage is destroying. So we got the more friction, and continuous friction ultimately cause the bone destruction, breakage and other things. So we cannot feel, we feel pain. So the cushioning has gone. The hyaline cartilage has been destroyed or it has been damaged. So what is the function of the articular cartilage? It's the hyaline type and it decreases the friction at the joint surfaces. So these spongy bones look like this one. Compact bones are more compact, but this has the little bit opening so that the arteries can pass, and this is called the cartilage, articular cartilage. What is I just told you. See, anatomy of the epiphyseal plate. These are the epiphyseal plate, right? Proximal epiphyseal plate. What it does? Flat plate of hyaline cartilage seen in young growing bone. So, youngs, when the bone goes, baby goes, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 18 years, then log. So after 8 years, generally stable. So before that, that epiphyseal, how the bone growth is not growing from both sides or something like that. So it's grown on the epiphyseal plate. It doesn't grow from anywhere. So it should be a direction on the place. So only the bone growth takes place in the hyaline cartilage region of the epiphyseal plate. What is the epiphyseal line? This is epiphyseal plate can be seen in the young or the child. Then the epiphyseal plate makes a very thin line of articular cartilage, even with the still hyaline cartilage for avoiding the friction, but it becomes small and compact now. So it's called the epiphyseal line because adult we doesn't need the bone growth anymore. If there is a bone growth, there is a disease when we form some deformity of the bones. So it calls the epiphyseal line. So what is that epiphyseal line? Is the remnant of the epiphyseal plate seen in the adult bones. So question, epiphyseal plate, you can see it in the young growing bone, child or young growing bone. Epiphyseal line only you can in the adult bones. So if the question comes, epiphyseal line can be seen in the young or child, true or false?
False.
Okay. False. Okay. Epiphyseal line can be
seen in adult.
Yeah. So yeah, it can be seen in the whatever true or false. It can give you the options: young, child. It can be like that. They can give the kid. They can come the newborn. They can give you the young and then you the adult. Then it's going to be only in the epiphyseal line is on the adult. The vice versa. If they say the epiphyseal plate, so you have to child. If the option child, young adult, young growing bone, so it's going to be anyone you can choose, not the adult. Okay?
Okay.
Good. So this is again the same articular cartilage. This is the epiphyseal plate in the adult bone. If it is the cartilage is more, it's going to be the young adult bones where bone needs to grow. Same picture. Okay. So now what is inside the bone? We have the marrow. It's called the cavity. The name is the medullary cavity. Cavity is inside the shaft, the total bone. What it causes? It causes the yellow bone marrow, most fat. What is where mostly fat stays in the bones? Yellow bone marrow is the answer. Okay, this question will come. Fat storage area in the bone. Question. Yellow bone marrow. Yellow bone marrow, give the little bit different options. Storage fats, storage nutrients, storage electrolytes. What is going to be the answer?
Storage fat.
Fat. Okay? Good. Good. So, now I told you before the red marrow. Only the red marrow is present in the infants where the blood cell formation takes place. Mainly the kids or the infants, whole marrow is mainly, that time they doesn't have the fat or anything. Mainly the whole marrow is filled up red bone marrow. Because then is more red blood cell production because they are developing. Then you can ask me then how we are forming our bloods if there is no bone marrow in the adult? Yes, we are producing blood every day because red blood cells only 120 days. And if there is some destruction of the WBCs or need the production or something controlling homeostasis for the WBC or RBC production, what we are going to get it? That means we have some place. But now it not in the full bone shaft. It's only inside the spongy bone and epiphysis of some long bones. It's the spongy bone, is the inside the bone, some spongy bone. Here, this area, the spongy bone, and some epiphyseal plate. Only near these areas, not in the full bone. So in it's the full bone, is the shaft is full with the red bone marrow for the blood cell formation. In the adult, is only in the spongy bones and some epiphyseal area. Okay. I am reading this one, these bone markings. It is not going to come in your questions. Just to know, it doesn't have to pay that much attention, but just know. So surface features of the, what are the bone markings? The bone markings is the site of attachments of muscles, tendons, and ligaments. And it passages for nerves and blood vessels like through inside. What are the categories of bone markings? Projections or processes grow out from the bone surface. Terms begin with T. So that means the depressions and elevations. Terms begins with if is the indentation. When is the projection over the bone surface? It comes with the T. When is the depression? It starts with the F. Now, osteon. This is come sometimes. What is the unit of bone containing central canal and matrix ring? This is very deep anatomy. We doesn't need it, but you can just remember osteon is Haversian system. What is that? Unit of bone, a bone part of a bone, which has the central canal, like this one. This is the central canal and the circular ring, that is the osteon. Central canal is the opening of the center of an osteon, that is the unit. And why it's important? It needs the carried blood vessels and nerves, because something has to be there. If the bone is totally compact, what is going to happen is a dead. But we need to keep the bones live, needs the nutrients, needs blood supply, need the oxygen, everything, right? We need to supply everything. So that is inside the bone, there is a spongy tissue. Inside the spongy tissue, the part where the part inside the center, that is area which has a central canal, that is called the Haversian canal. That the canal from where the nerves and blood cells pass. This you doesn't need to, only this one is important. Perforating Volkmann's canal perpendicular to the central canal, because it's not only that it goes straight, but it needs the supply this side. So this is called the Volkmann's canal. The main important is the Haversian canals, that is the central canals, which is the main area to for the supply of the nerves and blood vessels. See how it looks like. So it's not only one. So these are the units. This is called the osteon, which has the central canal. This is the total Haversian system is your osteon and the central canal. So here the nerves and blood supplies goes. There are so many osteons in each bone. And you can see these are the Volkmann canal, which is going perpendicular. So this is called the center Haversian canals. This is called the perforating or Volkmann's canal. And this is, we have the spongy bones at the edge. What is the lacunae? Cavities containing bone cells. That's all you doesn't. And the bone cells, the another name of the bone cells it comes is the osteocytes. Okay, cytes is cell, osteo means bone. So name of the bone cells is osteocytes. Doesn't need the lamellae or other things. So these are the bone cells. It's called the osteocytes. The laminae is kind of and between the osteocytes you can see the canalicula. It's called the lacunae, bone lacunae. We are going to know the lacunae. This is the now you can see. This is the total osteon. Is the they are dissecting out, and this is the central canal. This is the Hervetian canal. See, this is one part of the osteon. This is the osteocyte. This is the actual. That is the diagram, but this is how it actually looks like under electron microscope. What is canaliculi? So we have the central canal, like the Hervetian canals, perpendicular, it goes the Boltzmann canal. The same thing from the central canal, there are tiny canals radiate to different parts of the bones. That is called the canaliculi. These are the tiny canals radiate from the central canal to the lacunae and helps in the transport system connecting to all bone cells to a nutrient supply. So these are the canaliculi. This is the main central canal. From here is starting. See here goes. These are the canal. This is the canal. This is the canal is going there. Formation of human skeleton. So this is the embryo. The skeleton is, as I told you, when it's the fetus, all bones are primarily hull and cartilage type, soft bones. Otherwise, baby cannot stay in your womb if it is the soft bones. If it is the hard bones, oh my God, his mom's life is hell, right? So this is the soft bone, hull and cartilage. But during the development, this cartilage is getting replaced by bone. Cartilage remains in isolated area till bridge of the nose, till in the adult, bridge of the nose. That's the guy showed in the video. You can move here. Parts of the ribs, we see there, right? Where the ribs is attaching with the sternum and joints at the end of the joints. We have till the hyaline cartilage. So
And
only
also
in the adult, only you
really?
have
The ears?
yeah, ears also. This is the fibrous cartilage. That's why it's called the not the hyaline cartilage.
Okay.
He's talking about the hyaline cartilage.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. So many little bit confusion. Thanks for asking. Yep. So bone growth. Epiphyseal plates allow the bone to grow lengthwise during the childhood. New cartilage is continuously formed. Older cartilage become ossified. So what is happening when the bone grows? New cartilage forms and the cartilage what was there previous, it became bone, compact bone or ossified. That's all. You just need to know bone. So here I'm going to tell you two things. How bone replace takes place, the cartilage through the action
Osteoblast.
of the osteoblast. Bone replaces cartilage through the action of the osteoblast. There are two types of bone cells, osteoclast and osteoblast. So bone replacement takes place through the action of the osteoblast. And now we are going to go to the bone growth stage. Bone are remodeled and lengthened until the growth stop. Obviously, the bone is growing until we reached our age where we become adult. We doesn't need any bone growth. So bones are remodeled in response to two factors. It's not only in the kids, for everyone. We need the blood calcium levels and pull of gravity and muscles on the skeleton because it has to needs the pull, otherwise bone is taking the short. When there is a need, the muscles are growing, then the bone needs to be stretched, the bone is growing. And in general, what happened? The bone growths, the epiphyseal plate allows the bone to grow in the lengthwise, but the name of the growth of the bone in wide is called the appositional growth. Okay, what is the appositional bone growth in wide? Is called the appositional growth. So they are showing how it's forming. This is the in an embryo, all the hyaline cartilage. Then bone starting to replace cartilage is getting the bone here, making ossified. This is in a fetus, slowly hyaline cartilage. Then they are developing the new center of the bone growth. Then slowly what is happening is became totally growth bones is the in a child. Till is the hyaline cartilage, new bone forming areas. The hyaline cartilage is developing and this cartilage is getting ossified to lengthen the bone. And this is the epiphyseal plate. And when the bone growth in this side is the appositional growth. Okay, good. This is the same pictures. So how the bone grows? Cartilage grows here. Cartilage is replaced by bone here. Cartilage grows here. Okay, so cartilage, you doesn't need this bone here. Yeah, so bone remodeled shaft. Cartilage is epiphyseal plate. Bone rears, you doesn't need this one. Okay, so type of bone cells. This is more important. So osteocytes is called the mature bone cells. Osteoblasts, it help in the remodeling and formation is called the bone forming cells. And so osteoblast and osteoclast, giant bone destroying cells. When you have the extra growth of the bone, so the osteoclast come in that area to eat the bone. It destroy the bone. So osteoclast and osteoblast. So is the osteoblast is an osteocyte or no? No answer?
What's the question again, ma'am?
Is the osteoblast is an osteocyte or no?
No.
No?
Well,
So what about osteoclast? Is that osteocyte or no?
Osteocyte's a mature bone cell.
They
Osteoblast is a bone forming cell.
yeah, they are originated from the osteoblast, I guess. Because it's a young bone forming cells.
No, give me the answer. Whatever I am asking. Is the
Yes.
osteoblast is an osteocyte?
Oh no.
No.
Osteoclast is an
An
osteocyte?
osteoblast is also an osteocyte, yes, because an
No, it's
osteoblast
not.
is a bone cell. So it's also
Yes.
an osteocyte.
Exactly.
Yes.
Osteocytes
young.
are all mature bone cells. All mature
Yes.
bone cells are the osteocytes. Osteocytes may be osteoblast or osteoclast.
Or
Right.
exactly.
Conception clear? Not
Clear.
yet? Clear? Conception clear? Clear?
Clear.
So, yeah. So, osteoblast is one class of osteocyte which is responsible for bone formation. And osteoclast, a division of osteocyte which is responsible for bone destruction. Okay? So break down bone matrix for remodeling and release of calcium in response to parathyroid hormone. Bone remodeling takes place with the help of the hormone is called the PTH or parathyroid. Bone remodeling is performed by the balance between the osteoblast and osteoclast. How much is going to be formed, how much is going to be shaped is the balance between the osteoclast and osteoblast. Okay? Clear now? Everything?
Yes.
Okay. So now we are going to different types of bone fracture. Fracture means break in a bone. This type of bone fractures are important. Is going to come in questions, any one of them. So types of bone fracture is a closed fracture or open fracture. Closed fracture is simple fracture, break that does not penetrate the skin. That means it's a break is inside the skin. That is called the closed. It's called the simple fracture, closed inside. Does not penetrate the skin. That's just called the closed. Open. When injury is so bad, brain breaks and it penetrates and came out. That is the open or compound fracture. So, bone fractures are treated by reduction and immobilization, doing the plastering and something. Now, there are couple of different types of name of the types of brain fractures. Not brain, sorry, bone fractures. This is important. Comminuted, this comes often. This one and impacted. Comminuted. Bone breaks into many fragments, more than one, more than two. Sometimes it comes as a question, bone breaks into many fragments, bone breaks into more than two pieces, bone breaks is more than four pieces. So bone breaks into many fragments are called comminuted. Compression, bone is totally crushed. Depression, broken bone portion is pressed inward. It has been pressed inward. So it's a bone broken, not only broken and staying in that position, it pushed. And impacted, when the broken bones force each other, they are crossing each other, they are getting friction. That's the impacted. Spiral will not come question. Now green stick, bone breaks incompletely. It's kind of hairline fractures. Incompletely, it didn't broke totally. So it's not has been two parts. It has broken, but it's not. It breaks incompletely. Green stick injury, impacted injury, and your community injury. These three are very important. Questions comes in different forms. Okay. So you have already learned. Why you have to learn this? Oh, these are the different parts of the bone. Okay. We have a meeting from 12. We doesn't need the repair of the bone fractures. It's the hematoma. It's the blood-filled swellings. It's a hematoma means when there is a break of the bones, there will be blood. It's called the bone and is splintered by the fibrocartilage to form a callus. So this is up to this. Okay, so we are going to end here today because I have been meeting from 12. I already late. You guys stay, do the studies, okay? Do the studies. We have also learned a lot of things today. So do your studies. Okay. So then around 1 you can leave. And remember, we are going to start from slide number. This is we doesn't need this slide number. Which one is that? Axial skeleton. We already learned some, but leave the different parts of the skull. To be honest with you, those parts we didn't need too much, but we have to learn. Okay. Okay, see you then. I am on team. I am going to be in another meeting. I am going to be a hold. Okay, so this is our general meeting. Okay, thank you. Chapter 5, we have to go up to the unit 10. So
Yes.
whatever I have teach today, the remain portion of the, I think, unit 8 and today unit 9. So go the reviews today, okay? Okay. Thank you. Because I have to go. I totally forgot the meeting started at 12 or 12:30. Let me see.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. 12, okay. Oh, it's 12:30. You want to go a little bit more? Or you want to study?
You can go to your meeting, miss.
No, my meeting I saw is 12:30. So if you want to study a
Okay.
little more or you want to study by yourself now? You need number 6 to 10. Okay. No, we are going to go. This is a new chapter. So we are going to go tomorrow. You study this one, okay? Okay, this is the new Excel skeleton. You have to start from here. Okay. Because if I start, I have to continue. Okay. So I can work on something else by this time for your things. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm stopping sharing the screen now. Stop sharing, but I'm going to be on the team. Okay, good.